Hello and welcome to Conscious Woman Rising the Conversations podcast. I'm Dipika Delmenico, and today I am so happy to be in conversation with the beautiful human, Daven Lee. Daven is a teacher, a writer, an integrative therapist, a priestess of the yin. And Daven joins us in conversation to really explore the power of the yin. So welcome, Daven.
Thank you so much, Deepika. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So good to be in conversation with you. It would be exquisite if we were together in person, but there's a lot of ocean and land between us.
Yes.
Right now.
In person like this, miraculously.
It's magical, isn't it? Yeah. Daven, look, the most obvious starting point for me is to ask you, what is the power of the yin? I mean, I really enjoy saying it. Because the word yin is something that I relate to and imagine as being soft, slow, and nurturing. And to have the word power with the yin, it's like, oh, this is mysterious.
Thank you for that. I mean, you are naming it. That's exactly what got me excited, putting those two words together. And putting those two words together has been my own discovery, has been my own journey of the power that is in that soft, slow, deep. I mean, even as we begin to speak to it, we're both slowing down, we're both dropping into a deeper place. Our energies kind of is expanding to become more diffuse, more aware on in a more subtle, but I was going to say penetrative, which is the yang. So it kind of immediately clicks into its opposite very quickly. It kind of turns into, and that to be in that space, to come into the internal and the deep and the dark and the sometimes chaotic place, non-linear place of the yin, is to touch a huge power. We're accustomed to thinking of power as coercion or pushing through something or winning at something or having the final say over something or manipulating. And this other kind of power is a power of listening and connecting lots of pieces, being able to hold a lot, just like a mother who's able to handle so many different, the multitasking kind of diffuse attention that a mother has. Often we associate with mothers. And the power to feel into the field, the power to wait for the right moment for action, for yang action, the power to be able to tune into something that's actually outside of our cognitive awareness, this is the power of nature. This is an incredible power to carve the Grand Canyon over thousands of years. It's very different from a single focused directed power of the yang, which is also powerful. But our culture has become really skewed in favor of that visible, immediate, kind of flashy power. And because the yin is so, in my experience, vast and it's hard, you can't know it. You can't just say, I know it. I know the yin, I understand this yin world. You can't. It always keeps us a little off balance. if we're coming at it with our cognitive mind, if we're coming at it with a desire to quantify, to control, to have something to show for yourself. And so there's also this incredible power in being able to surrender, relax, and actually become comfortable in the unknowing, in the mystery. Then anything is possible for us. And if we balance that with the ability for right action, when the yang moment comes through and it's time for action, then there's an incredible amount of power available to us. Power as in agency, as in effectiveness, as in creativity, to be able to create something new. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's just knowing, listening to you. There's such a strong sensation of to cultivate relationship with the yin is to cultivate relationship with the I am. And working on one puts us in right relationship with other.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how did you come to what's your journey? What?
Yes.
Because were you born, did you always have this depth of understanding of this quality that is embodied in the yin? Or is it something that came through challenges, the gritty aspects of life?
Yeah. It's funny, nobody's ever asked me if I've always been in touch with this. And it kind of brings tears a little bit, because the answer that I want to give is yes, but I wasn't aware that I was in touch with it. Or I pushed it aside pretty quick because I didn't think I could survive coming from that place. And as a woman, as a female child, as a girl child, growing up in the 70s, which was, the height of feminism, kind of coming into some level of acceptance, even though, and a lot of challenge, continuing to challenge the status quo. My understanding of those messages is that softness, surrender, sensitivity, these were the last things you wanted to be in the world. This was not the way to be a strong woman. And, even though the argument was women are different and equal and sometimes better, was a lot of the argument. How it was showing itself was we can be like men, or we can be like the masculine.
Yes.
Instead of the power to surrender is incredibly powerful, and it's not about giving up or giving over something in a powerless way, So just as one example, and as a strong female, as I have been, I really took that on as I'm going to be competitive. I'm going to be assertive, and I'm going to try to keep up with the guys, and I was raised by a single mother, and in my perception growing up, she was really having a hard time. And so that was another signal to me that being in the feminine was not the way to get by in the world and was not a position of power. I think I've always been interested in power and things that are powerful. I have a lot of energy. I'm a big energy person. And so it seems to coalesce around this idea of power in a good, in a strong way, in a way to move mountains and make things happen and change the world. So I was living my life from that place, what I would call a false yang place, and thinking that that's who I really was. And I was married for a while, and when my marriage ended, what became clear to me is that I had been in a reverse relationship with my husband. I was being the masculine partner, and he was being the feminized partner, and that actually didn't work for me. That I needed, so I suddenly became, through different healers and people that I was working with who were kind of helping me through this transition, became aware of masculine and feminine dynamics and this idea of the polarities and the idea of what is my essential energy and to embody that. And then I need a partner who is my polarity to that. And that thinking can be a little simplistic, but that was the key that opened the door to a vast amount of understanding for me. And for me to begin to get in touch with my feminine as my true essence, which, the feminine is not necessarily synonymous with the yin. I mean, yin and yang are just qualities. So what I'm finding as I'm exploring this next level of understanding of the yin is I kind of weave back and forth. Sometimes I do equate it with the feminine, but other times I'm really just expanding into, this is just a quality of energy, obviously, that we all carry. So just as an aside. And then
a great aside. It's a great aside.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing out that differentiation and the nuances.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we seem to need to go into certain sorts of harder definitions of something before we can then expand and let those definitions go, So for me to really embrace this idea of the yin as the feminine and what is my feminine, and to begin to encounter men who express more of a yang essence and what does that feel like, that was a very big growth, continues to be a growth experience for me. And then I also started practicing qigong. So I went from I was actually a figure skater for a while, not a professional or anything like that, but it was a passion. And I started getting injured, and I couldn't skate anymore, really. Like, I didn't feel safe. And somebody recommended, one of the healers in my life recommended qigong, which is about the polar opposite of competitive figure skating. And something huge just opened up inside me of moving slowly and beginning to realizing that I was sensitive to energy and becoming more sensitive to it. And realizing that when you start to slow down, it's like the earth opens up all of a sudden. There's this just hugeness that I could feel I was suddenly accessing that was incredibly powerful and mysterious. So that began my path into what I do today, though really that divorce, and then beginning to learn qigong, become a practitioner. And what I haven't even mentioned in there is sexual energy. So that bit about the yin and the yang and the polarities being reversed in my marriage meant that there was no sexuality between us. And I could feel that I was starving for that. So
sexuality. Thank you for sharing, because I'll just park sexuality and sexual energy there for a moment. want to really recognize and acknowledge your exploration of this quality of the yin with the qigong.
Yes, yes.
You began to have a really palpable, tangible
Embodied.
embodied, yes, relationship with this quality.
Exactly.
So sexuality, sexual energy, you know, we all have it or don't or want it or not, or it's a problem or a blessing or a curse. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of feelings, a lot of tension for people.
Yes.
It
Yes.
creates a lot of tension, and there's a lot of power.
Yeah.
With sexual energy. And what is it? What is it? Because we all think we know what it is, but we all have this unique individual relationship and understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other word I wanted to throw in there when you were talking about tension and this is longing also. It's incredible longing.
Longing. What a word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, my perspective, what I bring to talking about looking at working with sexual energy for myself and with my clients or people I get to meet in my workshops and things, comes from Taoism and Chinese medicine, which is basically that our sexual energy, which has a name, it's called the Jing. It's associated with the kidneys in Chinese medicine, which is the water element. And incidentally, the kidneys and the water element are associated with winter, which is the yin time. So thinking about sexual energy as coming from the yin. The Jing, the story, I think of it as the creation story of our sexual energy. The Jing comes into being at the moment of our conception, when the sperm and the egg of our parents met. So from that sexual moment, our sex is created. But the Jing is not just about sex. It's actually creative energy. It's the energy that creates. It's the energy, how I think of it is, it's the energy that makes us like God. In the Bible, which I'm not a biblical person, but this is in our culture, the Bible says God created us in God's image. What does that mean? To me, that means we were created as creators, and that makes us different as a species. And that energy is our sexual energy. So when we open to that energy as being so much bigger than just sex,
yes,
and yet it includes sex, and sex is a part of it, all of a sudden it just becomes it's essential for all of us to be in relationship and integrated with this energy so that we can create what we were meant to create here during our lifetime, during this gift of our life. It's also the energy that is considered to be the underlying, so the kidney energy, the kidney qi, the Jing, is also considered to be the foundational energy for our health. So in the 5 organs, or the Chinese 5 element system, the organ system, if another organ is struggling, like the lungs, it actually pulls the kidney qi to support it. This is adrenal fatigue. This is when we are overdoing, we're actually pulling our kidney energy. And so to understand that one of the ways to support our foundational level of health is to nurture our sexual energy, to cultivate our sexual energy. It just puts it in a completely different framework than what we have been taught. And that energy, the Jing, my Jing, your Jing, it is a very unique imprint of us in that energy that took place in that moment of conception. If you think about the DNA strands, it's so great because we can weave back and forth between this Western understanding and this kind of metaphysical Taoist understanding. That DNA that is so unique for us, that contains the unique code of our being, that's in the Jing. So I feel so passionate about helping people awaken into that energy and receive it as a safe and powerful gift.
Yes, yes. And it just makes so much sense that there's so much the use of, or the relationship to sexual energy. It can be used in a very dysfunctional way, shall we say?
Oh, yes.
In trying to really experience union with the God nature.
Yeah.
In which we're created in the first place, as you were saying. And so it's this incredible it's a vehicle. It's like a vehicle to know ourselves more fully, to really experience our essential nature more fully. And the more congruent we become with that, the more we experience the qualities, the power, the wonder of this creative force. And words that come to mind, I'd love to know what you feel about it, but words that come to mind for me are, so many people over the years, women and men, are struggling with libido. I have low libido, or I've lost my mojo, or and it's quite a well, again, it's an individual understanding, but it can be a very limited understanding of what that is.
Oh, yes.
Very, very limited. Because I don't have the desire for sex, or I have no energy for sexual relations, therefore my libido is low. But it's so, the word libido and mojo is so much more than that. And as you're speaking to, the first moment of impulse of life that is our sexual energy.
Yes.
Where the divine creator sort of places that one drop of essence that makes us, sustains us for a lifetime in this physical body. It's just extraordinary. So what I'm hearing you speak about is it's our vital essence.
Exactly. It's our essential life force energy. Yes. 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 And so we can't isolate it, to the bedroom or to libido. It's just so much bigger. And, this is where the yin comes in, because as we started in our conversation talking about, living in a culture that values the sort of outward, what you can see on the outside, which it values constant production, it values high summer all the time. It values, being a movie star,
A movie star in high summer.
In high summer, exactly. Like everything is a peak experience. Everything is a big orgasm, actually. Instead of knowing, that an orgasm comes from this like deep, slow place of collecting and gathering and arousal, a slow rising, a slow emerging, that's coming from, again, the water element, a deep well or that underground aquifer that is full and wet and rich and fertile. And we are pumping the water out of that aquifer, out of that well, faster than we can replenish it. And it affects every aspect of our lives. And so, what's helpful is that our desire for sex, or our sex drive is the canary in the coal mine. Like, it shows us real quickly, that there are many things out of balance in our life when we're not in that place. And it's not to say that the ideal is that you feel sexy. This is not a Hollywood idea about sexiness or about sexuality. This is about nature. This is about us as creators. If you, whether or not you use your sexual energy for sex is irrelevant. It's your arousal energy for life. And so I can feel a sense of arousal and my heart opening because it's such a gorgeous day out, and I'm thrilled to be feeling the air on my skin and what might be possible in this day. And then, to bring that to our conversation that we're having now, or something that I'm creating, or a meal that I'm making, or a book I'm writing, or something, that's the energy that we're talking about. And like everything human, it can be so dysfunctional. It can be used in such a damaging way. And the opposite of suppression is not wild abandon. Or I should say the antidote, the remedy for the suppression is not like, well, I'm just going to take the lid off and do whatever I want. Which is why there are so many, ancient traditions that put this energy at the center and created very strong practices over years to cultivate this energy. I love the word cultivation. It's kind of a Taoist word, but of course it's like a garden. It's not that we don't love the wildness. And it's not that there isn't a place for wildness, but you need to tend the soil. You need to pick the weeds. You need to feed, the most nourishing fruits and vegetables that you want to grow. And you need to be accountable to that garden. So that's where practices and consciousness comes in, because this kind of energy, because it's God energy, and I keep using that word, but divine energy, divine creator energy, it's a lot for our systems. It's actually overwhelming for our systems. We experience overwhelm from this energy all the time.
Yes.
It is that overwhelm really of spirit and soul, something that's really infinite, coming into physical form and having to deal with certain kinds of boundaries. So that is a very important aspect of this work to me, is the cultivation, is a kind of, beautiful self-reverent discipline to care, for this energy, just like you'd want to, if you're raising an animal for show, and how you just like groom it and feed it. I mean, that's sort of a strange analogy, but I'm just thinking of, how we would care for something that we want to just glow and give its best, its best self in the world.
Yeah. So what are some of the practical ways? Like, I can only imagine when you work with people that how things transmute and transform and change form in unimaginable ways for them. Like, like
Yes.
I can just the unfurling, like, oh, I had no idea. I thought I was working with you for this, and
Yes, exactly.
oh my gosh, anything is possible in my life now. I'm the divine creator. But what are some practical ways that people can really cultivate right relationship,
Yeah.
right understanding, which will just poof, accelerate one's digestion of life itself.
Uh-huh.
But what are some of the practical ways that people can cultivate this right relationship with sexual energy?
Yeah. You know, they're actually very simple, which I love because as much as we're speaking in these, we're talking about the hugeness and
Yeah.
the power, the excitement of this energy, it's also simple, ordinary, and natural energy. You may recognize those words from our shared teacher, Sarah McCrum.
Yes.
I just want to credit
Yeah.
her for that because it's part of nature. It's normal. It's happening all around us. It's simple, ordinary, and natural. So the first principle is being grounded, being connected to the earth. And being grounded also means being in our bodies. So bringing it down to earth, rooting into the earth, feeling a sense of, the earth provides existential stability and a center. Because this energy can just fly up out of control, and we want to keep it really grounded. And we also want it to manifest on the earth plane, and so being grounded, relaxing and softening and creating space. So another response to the intensity of sexual energy is to, contract. And then we become this tiny container that then creates even more pressure around that energy, but just relaxing. And, it could go on from there, but just letting yourself soften into a natural sensuality. And of course, sensuality comes from the senses, just opening your senses so that you can feel more. And from feeling more, from relaxing, from being grounded, you can begin to notice what gives you pleasure. And here's where, and longing, we talked about longing, longing is the doorway that the portal that kind of opens into, I want to feel more. I want to have pleasure. I want to awaken my desires. Many people don't even know what they really want, what really does give them pleasure. But I want to open to my desire because desire shows us something about our essential selves. So there's certainly desire, quite literally sexual desire, but there's also desire of what would taste good to me in my body. What would, where's my attention really wanting to go today? And it just goes from there. And there's a lot of healing, of course, to be done along the way, because at each stage of what I'm describing, there has been, manipulation and dysfunction and overlays. But when we're talking about our essential energy, we're asking our essential energy that question, and we're wanting to clear the way to really drop in and hear. And even though, yes, the healing journey can be long and there can be lots of layers of healing, I just find that it is our essential self is always instantly available to us. And so the healing can happen from connecting with that essential self. In other words, it's not like we have to like spend years peeling away the layers before we can find our essential self. And that said, the longer we work on this, the more our essential self does become known to us. But it is always there, and it's always, we can always tap into it.
Mm. So the intelligence of nature, the intelligence of creation, the intelligence of each of us has all the clues and all the solutions, so accessible when we ground, relax, connect with nature, and live simply.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and be simple in our bodies.
Mm. It's like a balm. It's like a little balm.
Yeah.
That's
Soothing.
just, yeah, 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 and
Nourishing.
yeah, and we're all seeking it. We're all always seeking nourishment. We need constant nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Just like the plants and the trees.
Yeah. Yeah. So I suddenly have this beautiful, rich image again of when you were describing the yin and the carving
Mm-hmm.
of space, as we know, as the Grand Canyon, and that it was soft, steady, simple,
Yes.
rhythmical.
And timeless. That's the other thing, is there is a spaciousness in relationship to time.
And the more we
Also.
get in touch with this divine creative impulse, this energy that lives in us, this sexual energy, the more we realize that we don't have to try and bend time and compete with time and feel the pressures of time. That by nature we really are connected beyond it.
Yes.
It's just an illusion.
Yes. And there are moments of flowering and fruiting and mushrooming, that happen quickly, where boom, or that happen within a contained time frame. But all of those metaphors, they're all connected down into the soil and into the earth and into the yin.
Yes, they are.
So they're not cut off from that infinite source, and then they return to that infinite source. That to me is that dance between yin and yang.
The formed and the formless.
Yes.
Daven, it's just been so delightful being in conversation with you. Thank you so much. People listening, I'm sure will be
Yeah.
mulling over, chewing over. I can just sort of feel that already. You've just given so much to contemplate and really open to cultivate. and
Mm,
explore.
thank you. Well,
Thank
we're
you.
working in a similar arena, so this is a beautiful exchange to have with you.
It is. Thank you. So much love to you.
Same to you. Thank you.
For more conversations, you can subscribe to Conscious Woman Rising, the Conversations podcast, and you can keep up with all of our offerings, programs by following dipikadelmenico.com.